Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chilling Neigh Podcast, your premier VGC podcast. My name is Roshil, aka Konkadonk VGC, joined by Sableye and Tommy Hayden. What is up, guys?
Not
Go
much.
New York, go New York, go.
Been,
Knicks are on.
been playing a lot of Reg G, and I'm just happy I don't have to be the I don't have to be the one to do the intro this week.
Oh, we did a good job without him.
We
a
did,
good job
we
without
did, we
Conk.
did.
It's a
Sidebar.
great job.
But Conk, I'm so happy you're back. I'm so happy you're back. Thank you for coming.
Happy to be back and be talking Reg G.
Yes.
I'm gonna toss
Yeah.
the flush now.
It was a funny bit, but that's good enough.
Yeah. But we have a new format that will be starting in, well, the first tournament is in Indy, May 3rd weekend. So coming up real soon. So
Real soon.
we have a whole new, Reg G, it's one restricted for all those that don't know. So any like
Hold on.
box legendary, and these formats tend to be restricted formats are just a whole different beast. And so I really wanted to kind of talk through kind of what's different about this format versus others, and just talk through how good the restricteds are. I think a lot of tier lists and a lot of discussion online, but we haven't really been able to talk about it yet. So want to kick us off with what I think is probably the best Cali Shadow.
Right.
Thoughts
Come on.
on Cali Shadow, Reg G, like
Best mod in the format.
what do we, it's just insanely dominant.
Best mod in the
Like
format. There's nothing else to say. It's the best mod in the format in my opinion. You have what used to have 2 4 times weaknesses that you could kind of bully down and be able to help balance the Pokemon out. Now no longer has those weaknesses because of the ability to terrestrialize. And just that alone makes this Pokemon incredible. There is nothing that really is capable of just removing it from the field immediately anymore, especially if you're pairing it well with strong enough support. And it is just it is going to dominate the meta. It is going to be the best Pokemon. It is going to be the best restricted in the metagame, hands down. And there's quite literally nothing else to say about it. It is the best Pokemon in the format.
I heard this about Fluttermane a lot, but I think this applies to Cali Shadow. You have to have a good reason not to use it. If you're not using that Pokemon, you better have a good reason why.
Yep.
And if that reason's not good enough, ask yourself, like, all right, am I really trying to win? If you're really trying to win, that's just a Pokemon you can't ignore in the team building process. You need to figure out why you're not using it and if another restricted is really the one for you.
Yep.
And I'm not saying don't use other restricteds, because I'm trying Cali Ice. I'm trying Kyurem White. Kind of sucks. I'm trying a bunch of stuff. And it's like, you know what? Let me test it out. And the more I test out, the more I realize, like, that Pokemon's dominating for a reason.
It's clear number one.
it's
Yeah.
crazy because it felt like Smon was introduced in Sword and Shield, right? And for GS Cup in Sword and Shield, like okay, Cali Shadow super strong, right? But it's not like there aren't like this in this format it feels like Cali Shadow is just on its own tier, right? Whereas in the Sword and Shield it felt like okay, Kyogre's really good, Groudon's really good. Like there's other mons that like Zacian obviously was insanely dominant too. And so it
So
was like okay,
good.
all these mons are like on a similar level, right? They all feel like kind of equally good and just like kind of pick
With
your archetype.
Dynamax, it was an equalizer,
Yep.
Right,
right?
exactly, because you wanted to keep Cali Shadow not Dynamaxed so that you could click your spread move, right? And so again, you're sacrificing that bulk and 4 times weakness, right? You were a sucker punch away, right? You were like one,
Exactly.
snarl away from a Yveltal, which is
Yveltal was more popular.
right, and there was Yveltal, which we don't have anymore.
Can we have like a moment of silence for like a Veltal, please? I miss him. I want him back.
Yeah. I was never like the. I mean, actually, I brought Yveltal to my first regional, Yveltalization. But I don't
The
like.
Caucus that played you.
Yep, and we played each other.
And then we
That
had
was
the Outback.
Yep, yep. But I honestly don't like. I think Xerneas in this format would have just been like. I think it would have been maybe even better, like or close to as good as Kylie Shadow, which just
Give me chaos.
well,
I want chaos.
it would like. Could you imagine either Terra
No.
Fairy, Fairy Aura, or like boosted, or you could just Terra Fire or something,
Terra
KO and
Ground.
Amoonguss,
Perfect offensive
like
coverage. Put Terra Ground on a
yeah,
thing. Terra Blast.
Terra Ground. exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's just so. I'm like sad Yveltal gets caught in the crosshairs, but Xerneas was just you could not allow that thing
Yeah.
in a Terra format. Oh
I
my
think the
God,
calcs would have been broken.
it would have been crazy.
Yeah.
I saw a calc today where it was like Terra Fairy boosted next to Beads of Ruin, like Oko's no bulkization or something like that. Like it was just crazy. Oh, I don't know. But Cali Shadow, I wanted to bring up one thing. So yeah, we used to be able to knock it out in like one hit, maybe two if it was Sash. When you realize you could Terra it, has an HP of 100,
Yep.
defense of 80, special defense of 100. That's pretty good bulk. Like that is
Pretty
not a
good.
bulk.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
with with a good defensive Terra, with intimidate, with like being able to protect it, it's not something that you can get rid of like super easily anymore. And that just makes it like you can just click your 120 base power spread move with no drawback, and then get a KO, and suddenly you're just OHKOing everything that isn't a normal type, you know? So insane format, I think it's or insane mon, I think it's gonna be, in indie, like I think that's gonna its usage is gonna be crazy high as in terms of restricteds.
If it's not the most used restricted, I will be shocked.
Yeah, I'll be super shocked. Yeah.
Why is Kyogre better than everyone thought it was going to be?
Because everybody's panicking. But at the end of the day, clicking Water Spout into full HP into rain is always going to be good. It just takes a little bit longer to get to that position now. Right? Before it was very easy to click Tailwind Water Spout and not a lot could be done. However, now there's a lot more counterplay to that simple Tailwind Water Spout, or to that simple I'm just going to click Water Spout at some point. There's a lot more counterplay to that. It's still very, very strong. You can still cycle around to get to those positions. It's just not quite as easy as it once was, right? Everybody was like, oh, Miraidon's around, Raging Bolt is around now, right? Those were the two big ones, right? But now it's just not as easy to get to that Water Spout range anymore. So it's a little bit more like you have to think it out. Because before, like, I don't want to say it was brainless, but you had opportunities to no
Oh,
thoughts.
it was
Just
brainless and fun.
you could just
It
go
was a
no
lot of
thoughts
fun.
Water Spout, right? But it's not that
Yeah.
simple anymore. Still a very good mon, just still needs a little bit, just needs a little bit more positioning to cycle around in. But as the meta develops, I think you're gonna see Kyogre become a thing.
Yeah, I think like everyone like Ryan said, like everyone was thinking, okay, like Miraidon, Raging Bull, even Ogerpon Water,
Yes.
right? Like that's a big one. But like what I've noticed is like everyone was kind of really like, okay, those things are gonna stop Kyogre. I haven't seen a ton of usage. Like I have not seen an Ogerpon Water honestly in a while. Like
Yeah.
from what I've been playing, I have not seen much of that at all. Raging Bull, I
The
feel like has been
opportunity cost.
a little bit more popular, but still like I feel like less popular than it was in Reg F. Where it was like kind of on every team or close to it. And then Miraidon is obviously like one matchup, and what can feel a little tricky about this one restricted format, which we've never had like an official one restricted format before with like official tournaments in it, but we've had like some online formats with it in Sword and Shield, and it just feels a little bit like matchup roulette, where you can have, like Kali Shadow, you can have good matchup into everything, and then you face a Terapagos, suddenly you can't do any damage and stuff like that, so it becomes a lot harder. And same with Kyogre and Miraidon, but like in every other matchup, like its special defense is super good. Like can take Astral Barrages. I mean obviously Groudon doesn't want to face down against Kyogre. So I think people are gonna find that balanced build for Kyogre, and it's gonna be very strong. It's just a little bit difficult to get to that point right now. So
Ryan,
bring
what was going on in Kyogre Live in Woodhammer?
What?
that was crazy.
Oh yeah, no. From that clip, no, we're not talking. My Kyogre has probably illegal amounts of bulk. Kyogre should not be allowed to live that. I did do the calc after, and it was like a 93% chance to kill me, and I just happened to live on one. It shouldn't happen. In all honesty, I don't know if they were like max attack either. So right, they could have been more bulk under Ogerpon there. I don't know, but. For those of you that are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, basically I was in an online tour and I was streaming this online tour. They clicked Terra Fire under Ogerpon to get the +1. I had an Intimidate down on it, so it was back at neutral. They clicked Woodhammer into my Kyogre, and I just lived on one. And like, I was absolutely floored. Like, I had no idea that could
I
even
was
happen when I had built the spread, and then it happened, and
same.
I was like, huh. But
Go
no, the
watch
Mon
the
is good. It's
VGC
going to be able to
episode.
live things. I think being able to terrestrialize Kyogre is something that I don't think a lot of people are really preparing for or expecting, because now I can do big water damage without needing to be a water type. And I think that's something, as the format develops, you're going to see a lot of players really lean into that. But and we're going to find that defensive typing. Like the balanced players are looking for that defensive typing on Kyogre that's just going to allow it to sit on the field and allow that position to cycle into spots where you can click those water spouts. They're going to find that Terra. And whatever that Terra is, I think right now, I think everybody's leaning grass.
Yeah, I was
Pe-
gonna say because you
People are
resist
calling
the
grass.
electric, you resist the
Yep.
what the other one,
Yep.
and then the fire weakness in the rain.
Yeah, it's a very strong option for it. You get around spores as well from Amoonguss. You get around redirection there as well. It is very, very good. Very, very good. You're going to find ability. The balanced players are going to find it. Now, there's nothing wrong with going Terra Water and still getting the Water Spout. Just, you get a little bit stronger there. It's just a
I feel
matter
like
of
it's
finding the
greedy.
position. A little bit harder to find a position to spam it.
Yeah, it's like I was facing down a Kyogre team while I was like playing some battles today, and I have a Rillaboom and a Moongus on my team, and I was like, all right, like I should have my Kyogre matchup, Terra Grass, and I have like a Specs like Cali Shadow, and I was like, all right, takes the Specs not only did it take the Astral Barrage, right, which is like already Astral Barrage, like Specs Astral Barrage does a crazy amount of damage, but Kyogre especially bulky. Origin Pulse in the rain, crit, O-code my Urshifu water from full health. O-code. And then I was like, my Rillaboom can't do anything for Terra Grass, like my
Yep.
Amoonguss can't do anything to this. I was like, what do I do against this thing? Like it is being slept on, and I think it's gonna pick back up once people realize like how good it actually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
Once again, it's
I
just,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
it's great. Like
Can I just
just
shout out
water
another
damage,
restricted? Go ride on.
damage.
Go.
Mirror on. All right, Ryan, you take this one. You
What,
start off.
Koraidon? Okay, I have like probably a pretty unnecessary hatred towards this thing. There's a all I'm
Okay.
gonna say is there's a reason I bought
Yeah, tell
Pokemon
it.
Violet. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a good
I like
Pokemon.
purple.
Having a Sunsetter in a restricted format that can actually switch into Kyogre is one of the other reasons people were saying Kyogre is going to fall off. Koraidon matches up very, very well into a lot of the meta right now, right? You have good fighting coverage to deal with the Terrapagos. You have the Sun to remove the Kyogre. You're probably the better Sunsetter than Groudon at the moment, the way the meta has been shaping up. Right? And overall, you're just pretty consistent. You remove Incineroar from the field. If you're running Clear Amulet, you definitely do so. Even if you're not and you go down to -1, because you get the boost into Sun, your Collision Course is still removing Incineroar from the field despite being at -1. It is very strong into the format right now. There's not a whole lot that really wants to take it down. But I don't know. I tested it out. It hasn't felt good when I've tested it. It kind of feels like a Pokemon that is very, very good, and I can tell it is very, very good when I use it. It just doesn't feel like it wants to be my only restricted. It feels like one of those complementary restricted. Now I could be very wrong, and I probably am gonna get laughed at once it probably it's gonna win. It's gonna like win Indy, and people are gonna be like,
I think
haha,
it's a
you were wrong,
regional winning
right? But like,
restricted. I think
don't
it's a
get me
regional
wrong.
winning restricted.
It is good. It is incredible. It is a very strong option, but I think it only gets better beside the second restricted. Is there a reason to justify using Koraidon instead of just, as we said before, where Calyrex both of them, in fact, are just so good? Is there a reason to be running Koraidon instead? I mean, yeah, you get some pretty cool matchups, right? Hitting that Terrapagos is a big one for sure. It's also playing a little bit differently, right? It's a very good mon. I like it. I don't love it as a design Pokemon, but I have to admit where credit's due. It's a good mon. It's going to be a good mon.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a little bit of like a matchup roulette triangle between like Pally Shadow players struggling against Terrapagos, and then Koraidon players maybe struggling a little bit against Cali Shadow. I feel like when I've been playing Cali Shadow, like I have not been as scared of the Koraidon matchups much, and it's been feeling like because it's just not like it doesn't want to take an Astral Barrage, and
Yeah,
like it's
I
not
get you.
faster and stuff like that.
Even if it
And then
does.
I think but Koraidon's gonna be so good against Terrapagos,
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see a little bit of like, because I think once people realize what the best restricteds are, those usages kind of become dominant. Where it's
Yeah,
gonna be we're gonna find like maybe the 4 or 5 restricteds that like people are gonna use, and that's gonna make up like 80% of
agreed.
teams, and we're gonna feel a bit of matchup roulette between okay, how well can you patch your bad matchups while still like being dominant in the matchups you're supposed to be
Or
dominant in. So
or do you just make a meta call and say, well, if these are the 5 most common restricteds, is there a sixth restricted that actually matches up incredibly well into all 5 of them? And personally, historically speaking, I love restricted formats. I have played, this will actually be my 4th restricted format with Regulation G, and it's just a different mindset hitting the builder. There's a little bit of like a switch on what you can afford to do, right? Because like before, right? Like in other regulations, it's you can have that last slot, and having that last slot dedicated to one specific matchup sometimes feels bad. It feels like that Pokemon is a little bit useless. But in a restricted format, if I can justify having one piece that can just somehow flip a matchup against a different restricted that I would maybe in other words struggle with, if I can flip that matchup with one mon or give myself a chance in that matchup with one mon, it's a very,
Yeah.
very viable option. Whereas normally it would feel like useless most of the time. In a scenario with GS Cup and these restricted formats, something like that is very, very strong, and you're gonna see that later on.
yeah, there's I mean we're gonna talk about this a little bit later, but there's like a lot of mons that get a niche in restricted formats that you'd think would be like way too passive or just way too neat like used for way too niche matchups in like lower powered formats, but um people like I've built in a couple like in obviously Sword and Shield restricted formats and now this, and like you find certain mons where sometimes you find a team where it's like okay, I have a restricted and I can build a really good 4 or 5 mon core around it, and
Yep.
then there's like one matchup I really need this mon for, and that's when that mon comes, and it's not really coming a lot more, but it's so useful in that matchup that it justifies that slot, and it's really patches your team. So it's definitely very different where you're building now to just protect this one mon and to do a lot of damage with that one mon. And those matchups where you feel like that mon's bad, now suddenly your team gets a lot worse, and so you really need to be able to have some sort of answers for that bad matchup.
Yeah. Just
Um,
Why is Miraidon underwhelming?
can I just say one more thing about Koraidon first?
Yes.
yeah,
While we're on the topic, I don't want to just drift off and then come back, but I feel
I'm
like it's
changing the topic all
going.
willy-nilly. Sorry.
I feel like it's going to be the balance restricted of the format. Now, this is gonna
That's what I mean
be.
by regional winning.
This is gonna seem a little weird, right? Because I'm going to compare it to Zacian, which makes absolutely zero sense, right? But in GS Cup and Sword and Shield, we had our Zacian, and Zacian was kind of that balanced restricted, right? It kind of had a decent matchup into everything. It could punish a lot of the metagame, and it would just kind of be that Mon that wasn't necessarily amazing into a bunch of matchups, but it was not necessarily bad into a bunch of matchups, right? And I think Koraidon is very similar in a way where it's not necessarily gonna be going around winning matchups, but it's gonna be going around giving you chances in matchups, right? Like Conk, like you said, that Kali Shadow does massive damage into it, right? Like you still don't want to be sitting there taking Astro Barrages with your Koraidon. However, I think a well-built Koraidon team can match up well into a Calyrex team, right? You have the ability to shut down some of the opposing weather. You can be that Pokemon that just kind of has those neutral matchups. Now, it's a little tougher to do in a restricted format, right? But I do think that Koraidon could be that one sunsetter that's finally a balanced restricted, and I'm curious to see how it does develop. It's going to be interesting to see where it fits because I do think it has the potential to be that balanced mon, that balanced restricted. That's kind of it can be there, it can win games as long as you're playing well. It's going to be winning games, kind of thing, you know?
yeah. I think this is a good opportunity to transition to Groudon because I'm
Yep.
curious. Like Groudon has historically been right there with Kyogre in terms of like those are the really dominant restrictions, especially because they got some of the strongest spread moves, and now we have obviously some crazy more spread moves with Calyrex, with the Calyrex forms getting it with no drawback whatsoever and stuff. So and
None.
now we have a Sunsetter that's competing with Groudon. So I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on like Groudon moving forward, if it has a place or if it's kind of been outshined by Crydon.
Can I start with this one?
Yeah, go for it, Tommy.
Nope.
So if Groudon has a place, I think that's better for my Cali Ice team. And That's what I was prepping for the Indy Regional, the 22 Indy Regional. I was like, every ground on matchup, I could win with my Kyogre or Cali Ice team.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was something I don't know. I really don't know where Groudon's spot is because it's too slow, but not slow enough for the traditional Trick Room. If you use it on a Trick Room team and you miss Precipice Blades, it's gonna feel real bad. I heard about Gravity Farigiraf. You're trying too hard to make it work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you're like doing all this stuff to try to set up the Groudon,
Yeah.
and again, it's the opportunity cost. Is it worth it to run over Calyrex Shadow Rider? The reasons you run Koraidon is everything we talked about. There's a reason to run Miraidon because it enables its teammates well. There's a reason to run Cali Ice. You need the Trick Room mode, and you want to dominate in the Trick Room mode. Groudon is lacking that unique reason now. With the spread move that can miss, with the Sunsetter that's not weak to Kyogre, with the speed stat that's underwhelming. It's really in a weird spot, and if people can make it work, I'll be impressed.
I
I'm not good enough to personally.
I will give you one reason to run Groudon, and that is because of the ground type. If you are trying to fit a ground type onto your team right now in this format, if
It's
you were to
Orlando, I
search,
thought.
if you were to go on Pokemon Showdown right now and search up ground types that are legal in Regulation G, there is maybe I can count the number of ground types on my one hand right here.
Wait, can we do it?
You can search it up right now. I can't pull up the list since I have the recording open, but if you want to search it up, I mean, you get both the Landorus's, and one Landorus Therian is a stretch at best, right?
Yeah.
You get
Archibald,
Lando I,
P,
which
Lando I.
doesn't feel
Yeah.
great, and then give me another ground type that's actually
Archon.
decent.
Blood Moon Earth.
Okay,
So,
and the Ursalunas.
I'm gonna stop at Mamoswine.
No.
I want to
It's
read the
probably
whole list.
Ursalunas and probably the Lando, really Lando I.
Wait, this
Probably.
is crazy. It's literally
Yeah.
Groudon, Garchomp, Lando T, Lando I, Great Tusk, Iron Tread, Sandy Shock, Tinglu,
Yeah.
the Ursalunas,
Maybe two,
Rhyperior, Swampert, and Mamoswine.
And remove the 5 of those that probably just aren't good, and that's on your one hand. That is where Groudon comes into the meta. That is the reason to use Groudon. I don't think it's
Okay.
enough of a reason to use Groudon. However, having that ground coverage, pairing it with Fluttermane, historically speaking, is a Xerneas
It's good.
Groudon at home. It is
Yeah.
going to have strong synergy. It is going to be enough to get you wins. The question is, are you going to have to build the rest of the team too much, too hard, and making yourself harder to win? In my opinion, right now, I want to say yes. It does get a nice benefit of the clear amulet, but all the other physical restricteds get the access to that as well, right? I just feel like you have to work a little bit too hard to win, and then you're going to be in a
Yeah.
spot where you work all that effort, and you get to the end game, and, oh, well, now I have to
Absolutely.
hit a Precipice Blades, and you're just going to miss some of the time. Whereas if you're going to do all that work, there's restricteds where you're not going to miss that move in the end game. There's restricteds that maybe have a little bit of a better matchup into the other restricteds. Now, we are almost going to lead into Miraidon with this, but if Miraidon becomes very, very strong, we will see Groudon make appearances as a matchup fish to try and pull those Miraidon teams, because it does a very good job into Miraidon. Like a Groudon Rillaboom Fluttermane covers Miraidon very, very well. And I think if we
Groudon
see
Rillaboom
Miraidon,
Fluttermane's
raise, we are going to see Groudon raise as well as a natural counter. However, I just think it's working too hard on its own right now.
Yeah, I want to like it's funny to me because I totally agree that its ground typing is its biggest strength right now, and its ground type move is its biggest strength. But it's funny because it's also its biggest weakness, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that like in the last Kyogre coming in, right? You like Groudon doesn't want to see a Kyogre, and then the fact that the Torn could just rain dance right next to it, whatever it is, and even switching in on a water spout like in the sun feels bad
You take 50.
when super effective
Yeah.
hit. Like in the last few formats that Groudon has to face down Kyogre, we've seen in Sword and Shield where it's got the benefit of Dynamax, right? And like you can double its bulk, right? And you can keep setting Sun like with the Max Flares and stuff like that. You don't need like
No,
um
you can't.
Prankster and stuff like that. And then in the formats before, right, with Megas, like you had the Primal Groudon and the having the Sun that was able to stop the water moves and stuff like that. So like it's had some layers of protection in the past to face off against like its bad matchups, and now I feel like it's lost that layer a little bit. Terra can still save it in one sense, but like it's just I think it's the opportunity cost of using that versus using a Koraidon that can switch into those water moves really easily if you're taking it in the sun, especially like with the dragon typing, it's just super nice. The sun itself is like, I mean, the sunsetters are gonna be good because of proto spam a little
Yeah.
bit, and I
Yes.
think people
Yes.
will
Yes. Yes.
figure out
Yes.
some Groudon teams because they take advantage of it with like having Raging Bolt on those teams to cover your Kyogre matchup and stuff. But I do think it's gonna be the worst sun user out of the two.
Some of the Trick Room guys were talking about using it on those teams instead of
Yeah.
Torkoal.
Yep.
I can see it. It feels a little bit more balanced than the Koraidon, even though I just said Koraidon's probably one of the balanced mons of the format. It just
Yep.
feels like, I don't know. I'm an old head. I played this game too long. I don't think Groudon is going to stay down, but I also don't think it's going to dominate the meta by any means, anywhere close to what it used to. You're not going to see it at the top of the usage charts, but you're going to have to understand that, hey, if I'm going to a tournament, someone could easily try to pull up with Groudon. Let's keep that on my radar. That's the way I think we're gonna have to look at Groudon in this format, not like as a dominant force, but as a complementary restricted that might slot in, maybe try to pull around some of the right matchups. Because if it gets them, it's gaming. And I think one of those matchups is Miraidon. Thoughts
Yeah.
on Miraidon, guys? Because I have my own, but I'll defer for now and I'll jump
I
in at the
think I
end.
said mine by asking why it's been underwhelming. I haven't been seeing it dominate like I thought it would. Electro Drift calcs are nuts, but I haven't been seeing them go off.
Gunk?
Like so, I think that I've faced down some Miraidon teams, and I think that like the Cork Drive teammates for it actually work pretty well in that like bundle and Jugul. I've seen Jugulus and stuff like that. I think like Cork Drive stuff works, and I think there are some solid teams being built around it. I think that there are like there's a lot of terrain out there. Like there's a lot of Rillaboom, some Indeedee too for like a lot of the Psy
Mm-hmm.
spam Calyrex shadows or even just the
Yep.
Calyrex ice ones. There's a lot of terrain change which kind of hurts your chance to just like destroy mons with Electro Drift, right? And like you are also using a single target move, whereas like
Yeah.
a lot of the restricteds that are really good have that like if you're thinking of your Calyrexes, you think your Terapagos, right? You think of your Kyogres, right? A lot of them have spread moves, and like a lot of the times the name of the game is in restricted format is how, like can I just KO stuff with my restricted mon and maybe chip stuff down with your side pieces or protect with your side mons and really but like your main source of damage is your restricted mon and you want to be trying to take
Yeah.
KOs. This doesn't feel like it's picking up the KOs that it needs to with just a lot of like the defensive measures that aren't even specifically in place for it. It's just how teams are
Yes.
being built,
Yeah,
you
agreed.
That
know?
just happened to be there.
I, I, I,
Exactly.
I'm inclined to agree. That's my thoughts exactly. I think it is a little too easy to shut down. Right? It loves having that electric terrain. All those calcs that Tommy was talking about, those busted the busted Miraidon calcs that Tommy has been talking about, that Tommy has been mentioning. It's that involves in electric terrain because you get the electric terrain boost naturally. You get the ability which boosts your special attack in electric terrain. You remove the electric terrain, you are taking away two of those multipliers, and it is a massive hurt when in order to limit your restricted, if all I have to do is switch terrain, that seems like
Yep.
a very easy restricted to handle. Now, I'm not saying Miraidon is
Yep.
bad by any means. I think, like Conk said, the ability with the Cork Drive Pokemon, what it enables is very, very strong. But I think it wants to be that second restricted on a team. I don't think it wants to be that restricted for literally every single reason Conk said. It's too easy to shut down right now. You want to be whittling away at things and then all of a sudden just blow them up with your big restricted in the back. I feel like as we see a second restricted appear available to us in the formats, you're going to see Miraidon. It's going to be very good. You do stop sleep. So not only now are you becoming a more supportive restricted, right? Because you're stopping sleep. You get the ability to reposition with big Volt Switch damage if you really wanted to. And now you can chip
Yep.
everything down with the Miraidon and then have your big sweeper restricted in the end game, which feels really, really strong there, right? But we can't do that yet So I think that's what Miraidon is waiting on. I do think Miraidon as a Pokemon is naturally good. I just think right now you're waiting on that second restricted that you can complement Miraidon with. And I think that's really what it's waiting on.
What's the best
Totally
second restriction
agree.
for it?
I was just thinking, I was like, could you imagine a Groudon, Miraidon, Proto, Quark Drive spam team? Like that would be, and like Miraidon kind of helps you with the Kyogre matchup and stuff like that. I don't know if it's actually the best pairing, but I think both of those mons become like much better together
Yeah,
than they are separate right now.
I agree.
Uh, like I totally agree. Miraidon, I feel like is going to be a very good second restricted
Hmm.
because like another mod that we'll bring up later, Amoonguss becomes insanely more popular in restricted formats.
Yep.
And like, even though it shuts down Amoonguss in terms of spore potential, if you're just rage powdering away those electro drifts, right? Like what is it doing? And so you want that second restricted to help,
Yep.
get rid of stuff like that. So, um, totally agree on Maridon.
Yeah.
I want to bring up
What
Zacian.
other?
I want to bring up Zacian because it was the dominant restricted for like what was that? Well, we had a whole year of playing like the full restricted Sword and Shield. It
Yep.
was it was just like the broken mon that got its +1 boost anytime it came in, right? Was just Okoink stuff because of Behemoth Blade, right? Like doing double damage Dynamax. Obviously, some of it's changed in that sense and it's got nerfed. It only gets +1 the first time it gets in. So I've definitely seen that usage kind of
That's
fall
not
off a
it.
bit. I'm curious on what you guys think.
They lowered its attack,
They lowered its
right?
attack too. It's no longer
It lowers attack.
170, it's 150.
Yep.
Which is
So a lot of
massive,
nerf.
by the way, because I was running calcs. It actually hurts so much.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
like if you want to run Jolly Zacian now, and you go Jolly Max Attack Zacian, you actually only have an 87% chance to actually kill the Cali Ice, and that would be a Pokemon that I'm trying to one shot every single time. But now you're saying I can't guarantee that if I run Jolly. So now I have to go Adamant. But now I'm going Adamant, and that guarantees that I'm going to be slower than the four massive Pokemon that sit at 205, which are Fluttermane, Shenpao. Not that Shenpao is too bad, but Fluttermane, Miraidon, Koraidon. They're all faster than me if I say, hey, I'm going to go Adamant here. Right?
So
So
you can.
that drop is massive. The ability to... Zacian was the balanced Pokemon. Right? I could reposition, get it in. Oh, wait, you intimidated me? It's okay. I'll bring it back in later and I'll be out of Intimidate. It wanted to be able to switch around. It wanted to be able to cycle around. It wanted to be able to take advantage of balanced matchups, balanced approach to the game. And I don't think it can do that anymore.
I think it got nerfed a little too hard, honestly. Like in terms of
Yeah.
like just like because of like I think this nerf would have been good if we were still in Sword and Shield. Like
Bingo.
or like I don't because it still had the benefits of okay, Behemoth Blade's doing double
Yep.
damage. Like it still had its benefits. Now it's like okay, you bring it instant once, and now this thing's ability is pretty much just gone
It's gone.
for the
It's
rest of the game.
quite literally gone.
Like it's literally
That's
gone. And
the
so, like
downside to being a physical attacker in this format.
And you can't run Clear Amulet because you have to hold the sword.
Yeah.
exactly. And so it's like you can't even like try to patch that up somehow, and then also reducing the attack on top of that. It's just it's just not doing enough now where it's like okay, you can't have like a Dynamax partner next to it that's gonna like soak up attacks like again, Kali Shadow, you just get a little bit of chip down on that Zacian, and now suddenly you're dying to Astral Brush, and there's
Yep.
just nothing you can do about it, right?
Yep.
So it's just and like again, like we were saying, it's choosing a mod that's gonna do damage to single target attacks versus spread damage also hurts it. So it's just not doesn't have as many redeeming qualities as it did before. I don't think it's gonna be one of those top restricteds. I think it might be passed by its partner or co-star Zamazenta. Thoughts on Zama
Okay.
and
Why? Is body press that
because
good?
Body press is disgusting, Tommy.
It's that good?
yeah.
It's that good. And my main reason for it is with body press and your immediate +1. Obviously, that got the nerf as well. That ability is the same as Zacian's. You only get it the first time you hit the field. But that can't be as easily stopped. You can't just switch in as something and drop its defense back to neutral. You can't do that. And anything that would normally intimidate you, and Incineroar is a big part of this meta. If you were looking at any of the results from early Regulation G online, there is Incineroar, probably 6 out of 8 in Top Cut, 5 out of 8 in Top Cut, if not more than that. It is a very strong Pokemon to see around, and being able to remove it with a single body press immediately with Zamazenta is incredible. That is one of the biggest reasons I like Zamazenta right now. You also just get the ability to get the +3. You get stab body press off an iron defense. You are hard to take down because you actually have really good bulk on both sides of the board. And
Yep.
you pair this with support. You pair this with maybe some sort of healing. You pair this with fake out. You pair it with follow me, right? And all of a sudden, you are a fast body press user. We do not have a fast iron defense body press user, historically speaking. The fastest one we might have had, I mean, I'm going to get, it might have been Komodo. Might have been the fastest one we've ever had.
Amolo?
Yeah.
It might have been the fastest one we've ever had. Everything else you used to be able to kind of say, I don't need to worry about speed control to outpace this. I will just outpace it naturally with most of my team anyways. Now with Zamazenta, if you are trying to worry about and saying I'm going to outpace it in an endgame, you better make sure you actually have a Pokemon that's faster than it because it's not that easy to do. You get to you have the ability to click Wide Guard. I don't love Wide Guard on it. I think it's a little fake right now. I do think you want Protect just to allow yourself to cycle around beside it. Makes it a little bit less one-dimensional.
Put it on something else.
But I just think it's just so good. It's so hard to shut down. Now I don't think it's amazing. I still think at the end of the day it's a Zamazenta. It's probably not the best Pokemon in the format, but it deserves to be talked about and it deserves to have a potential consideration to be in consideration on a team. It's very good into Terrapagos as well, like we've mentioned before, but there's still some of those flaws with it, right? You can still hit it hard special on the special side. It's still all in all a pretty decent mod.
God damn it.
Agreed. I think like better.
Nick, sorry.
It's got
3 minutes
way
left.
better. No worries. It's way better than it was. I still think it's like in that maybe third tier of mons where it's like, okay, you got Cali Shadow on one, and then the second tier of like really good mons that are right behind it, then other mons that are kind of like,
Yep.
all right, there's gonna be these teams. It's gonna see some day twos. Is it gonna get close to winning a regional? Probably not.
I think it very well could. I think if the right player picks it up, I do think it could win a regional. Now, I don't know how likely it is, but if the right player picks it up and has the right and gets the right timing with it and gets his matchups right, that player could potentially go on to move to win the regional. It's very possible, right? Like it is a mon that I could see winning a regional with the right schedule and the right team and the right pilot. It's a little bit harder to do with the Pokemon, but I do think I could see that Pokemon winning a regional.
I think like the toughest path for that is just because you can't body press Cali Shadow, and you also don't love facing a collision course. Or what I think is that the move,
Yeah,
right?
collision course
For
Koraidon, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it has a little bit some challenges, but definitely I think like with the right team build, right pilot, like it could be something that we see. Like I don't think we'll end up seeing it win a regional, but I think like I could definitely see it in a top cut once, like or something like that. I think like it'll have some good like there's obviously some clearly motivated Zamazenta players. Like the people that want to use Zamazenta are gonna find its build, and so I think we're gonna see some decent
I feel like it
performances.
did well in my Tommy tour.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it's early right now.
Yeah.
Like everyone's gonna like it's gonna be a larger spread. I think this is the time where it can maybe do better, where it's like people are still just trying to figure stuff out. But we'll see.
Yeah. For me, I know I've said this about like probably 80% of the restricteds we've talked about and we've brought up already, but for me, it just feels like it's gonna be better in a 2 restricted format. Where I'm not saying that it's a bad restricted. I'm just saying that giving up your only restricted slot for it feels a little weird. When I can have a Zamazenta, maybe besides something that doesn't like Incineroar, right? Like let's say a Calyrex Shadow. When I can have Zamazenta Calyrex Shadow, it's off the top of my head, right? Maybe Zamazenta becomes very, very usable because it's dealing with other problems that Calyrex Shadow would generally have, right? It basically is a restricted Mienshao at that point without Feint or Fake Out, right? You'd get access to the Wide Guard, you get big fighting coverage into the Incineroar, right? It would basically be that restricted Mienshao. Now, does that make it a better Pokemon? It definitely gives you a second line to play into, right? But I do think waiting for that second restricted is probably a lot better if you are trying to win a regional with Zamazenta. Once again, guys, we're not saying you can't run these Pokemon, but we're saying that it might take a little bit more work to get them to the same place as a Calyrex Shadow team or a Calyrex Ice team or a Terrapagos team. Speaking of Terrapagos, I think this is a pretty
Yep.
natural segue. Conk or Tommy, whichever one want you to take it away, go for it.
I've been hating that thing because I've been trying to test out Cali Shadow, and I think my win rate against Trapagos teams is like less than 10%. Like
Yeah.
it is crazy hard to beat if you're using Cali Shadow, in my opinion. Or at least if you're trying to use a more balanced Cali Shadow team, I think maybe some of the more aggressive ones, it might be a little bit easier. But this thing is, it's interesting. I think it's really interesting because I think it's gonna be one that's like, it's gonna be consistently good. I think it's gonna be something where like you're forced to use your Terra on this one. Like that I feel like is gonna be a little bit of a drawback of this team. It's like there's a little bit of predictability of what this thing wants to do, right? It's either like I've seen two sets. One is like a Combine set, right, where it's really just trying to pivot, Combine, set up, and then just Terra Starstorm everything, try to take out KOs. Second one is just like a spec set where it's like, okay, we're just gonna do damage right away. But you could kind of more freely target each mon with a move, knowing that that super effective close combat into Incineroar is gonna be super effective. You know, it's not gonna Terra Ghost on you. It's not like it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be that's gonna hurt the team a little bit. I think it is. Obviously, it's been doing well on online tours, but I think there's gonna be some drawback to that. At least, and I want to confirm that is the I haven't used it yet, so it has to Terra, right? Like it has to always Terra.
It doesn't
That
No.
pretty much.
have to Terra.
Well, if you want the
If you want the broken
you
form,
want it
yes,
to
you
be
have to
good.
Terra.
you want yeah, if you want the spread, so it's gonna be a Terra Hog, but it doesn't have to
Yes.
Terra.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a Terra Hog, which I think is gonna hurt its team
What
comp a bit.
happens? What happens when you click the move and you don't Terra? Does it work?
It is a single target normal move. When you Terra, it
Yeah.
becomes a spread move and a Terra Stellar move, meaning it's neutral into everything. There's no weakness, no resistance. It's just neutral into everything. But it
Which
is
just
a
sucks.
very
Makes it
strong
choking
mon
already.
at doing what it does. Now, is doing what it does a little bit linear? Yes. Is it a little bit of a Terra Hog? Yes.
Yes.
But it is incredibly strong at that one thing that it does. I think there will be players that will be able to take it to the next level because I feel like and I'm going to get a little bit once again me and my weird analogies here. It feels to me a little bit like a Trick Room team. Now, Tommy, you might be able to relate to this a little bit, but it's very simple to pick up a Trick Room team and get the basic concepts of a Trick Room team, you know? I'm either going to follow me or fake out. I'm going to set my Trick Room up, and I'm going to try and do as much damage as I can in those 4 turns of Trick Room. Very similar with Terrapagos. The concept is very similar. You are going to click fake out. You're going to click support beside it while you're setting up your Combines, and then you're going to send your big Terra on it, and you're going to go Terra Starstorm. Right? It is very simple in concept. It is very simple in basic understanding of the Pokemon. However, I think if you can get the right player to pilot this, like a really good player that just knows how to pilot it better than anybody else that knows how to pilot it, it is going to be leaps and bounds better than just a regular person trying to pilot the team. I feel like with the right player and the right number of amounts of games with the team and they get really, really good with it, it's going to take that next level, right? Like it's easy to be a pretty decent Trick Room player, but that next level Trick Room player is really when it starts getting scary. It's going to be pretty simple to be a pretty decent Terrapagos player, but being that next level Terrapagos player, that's the part that I haven't seen yet. Because to me, when I've been playing against it, and I'm a balanced boy, right? So I've been cycling it down with like either the parting shots, the knockoffs, the clear smogs, the spores, right? I've had no issues really cycling around it, but I do think it can be very scary, piloted by the correct player in the right player's hands. It's going to be very, very scary.
Yeah,
So
I think it's gonna be like
I don't know.
before you go, Tommy, it's just that I think
Yeah.
its biggest thing is that it's neutral. What's it called? Immune to Astral Barrage, and I think that's going to be a huge
Mhm.
reason
Absolutely.
why
Yeah.
people will consistently bring it.
Yeah. Free Calyrex matchup.
Sorry. Yeah. All right, Tommy, go for it. Sorry.
Again, I don't know if it's like I think it's good. And Ryan, I think what you said about someone being able to pilot it better, I feel like that's good about a lot of random niche restricteds. But I feel like this is better than that. I feel like this is better than a random niche restricted.
Yeah, I agree.
It almost feels like Goldengo in the early formats to me. Is that a wrong analogy?
I
Where
could,
you
I,
either get the
gonna
spec set with trick or you just set up?
I
It's like a power creep Goldengo in my mind. Am I thinking about that the wrong way? Because its
I don't
speed is like middling.
I don't hate it. Like I think I like the analogy. I get the analogy, but from the games I've played, like Goldengo to me didn't need to Terra. You know, Goldengo to me didn't need to set up. It could stay in, click its spread move, then switch back out, come back in later, click its spread move again. Right? I feel like Terrapagos, I'm not saying it needs to Terra. I'm not saying it needs to set up, but it really, really appreciates that right now. And you could maybe get away down the line with running choice specs. You get not a lot of coverage moves, but probably enough, right? Can you get away with like a choice specs and kind of change the conceptual way or the fundamental way that this Pokemon plays? Absolutely, right? Is it an option? Sure. But I don't know if you're going to keep it on its best set. And its best set, in my opinion, is that Calm Mind, is that protect the queen mentality of I am going to go all in and I'm going to sell completely out to this Terrapagos, and that is going to be my team, right? I feel like that's the best way to approach this. And it's like I said, like similar to that trick room. Like, it's going to be better because I feel like you said like those a niche restricted is going to be piloted by a really good player. It's going to take that one person, right? But I think outside of that on a niche restricted, it's probably going to not be very good. Terrapagos at base is going to be very, very strong. It's going to be a good Pokemon. But to take it to that next level against all of the top players that are going to know how to kind of know their lines against a very, in my opinion, what is a linear core right now. To take it to that next level, it's going to take that top player that really says, I'm going to develop my lines with this team. I'm going to develop this team to a spot where it's not linear and I can make it and I can play it in a way where it's no longer linear and I can just cover up a lot of matches.
For sure. All right, so I think we covered like the major restricteds.
Can I
If
ask?
I'm not,
Can I ask about one more?
sure.
Necrozma and the Alola ones. Are they good?
Waiting for second
Lunala,
waiting for second
Solgaleo,
restricted in my opinion. They are waiting for a second.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
Galio, in my opinion, I'll give you guys a brief rundown. And Conk, I hope you don't mind that I'm taking this, but I've played I think 800 to 1,000 games in this format. So Lunala,
Go for it.
conceptually strong, very very good Pokemon.
Right?
It gets wide guard. It gets a lot of good things going for it. But as you're only restricted, not good enough in my opinion. It really appreciates having a second restricted beside it. I cut an early tour with a Lunala team. It felt really good, but now I keep trying to develop this. I go back to it every once in a while. I'm like, should I develop this? And I get like 3 months in and I'm like, wow, I really need a second restricted here to really make this thing go. It really appreciates that. Dawnwings and Dawnwings and Duskmane are both really interesting. I'm intrigued by both of them, but once
Me
again,
too.
I don't know if it's enough. Terra plus Prism Armor sounds busted. You have ability to
Right?
set up with the Duskmane. You have ability to do massive damage with the Dawnwing. So they're there. But once again, is it worth your restricted? In my opinion, no. But it might definitely be a very good mix-up restricted in a dual restricted format. And then Solgaleo, in my opinion, is just bad. I hate Solgaleo. All my friends know I hate Solgaleo. I even have a slogan that's my friends don't let friends use Solgaleo. So I'm not touching this mon. I don't think it's very good right now. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this because I know apparently people love Solgaleo for some reason. I can't stand this thing.
Shout out Kate DeMarney. Kate DeMarney loves Solgaleo.
If KD is listening to this podcast, I am gonna get at least 8 DMs from KD being like, "Why are you still hating on my boy?" Like, I'm telling you, people love this mod for no reason. Okay.
For no reason.
If you have made it this far into the podcast, put something like hashtag Solgaleo sucks down below or something. Come on, support the pod. Come on.
I'm
No,
Team Solgaleo. I like it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's gonna be good at this format, but I think it's a cool design one, and I'm a fan. All right, I want to pivot us a little bit. I want to talk.
Yo.
non-restricted.
27 seconds left. 101.99. Nick's down 2. Billy got the ball.
Leave it to Tommy to just like randomly talk about basketball mid set. No.
Wait, we did get the ball back. Here's a shot.
Mid pod.
OG got it. DiVincenzo from the top. We hit the 3. We got the lead with a second left. 13 seconds left. 102-101.
Wait, that actually.
Tommy, back to earth, buddy. Tommy, back to earth. Come on.
Guinea.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
All right, we might lose Tommy first.
Yeah, we're gonna lose Tommy.
I want to talk about non-restricted mons that haven't been good in Scarlet and Violet yet, but you think will be good in Reg G.
Lowry's down. I hope he's not.
I want to start because I think that, well, I mean, I know Tommy
Can I start
is
with this
part of
one?
the
Because I said we talk about Gastrodon like everyone else is. That
and mine.
like I don't get it. Is it that good? Why is everyone talking about Gastrodon and Mineshaw right now? Are they really that good?
Well, I'll say a different one first, and then we can talk about those because I think that like those are like the one. I mean I haven't heard Gastrodon as much, so I'm curious on that one. But I think Whimsicott is in a really good place right now. I like Whimsicott a lot, and I think that's not something that Torn has been the prankster Tailwind user since it has come into Scarlet and Violet. I think like. And this is specifically as a pairing mostly for Kali Shadow, I think. But I think it pairs nicely with that moon, like that fairy typing, helping out like that fairy coverage against dark types, but also pranks like the faster prankster Tailwind, and then prankster Encore is actually something that's just so good. Like I think that's its biggest tool. Where if you want to protect in front of an Astral Barrage, well, you got to switch out the next turn because otherwise you're just getting encored like, by the whim, you know. So I think that's a really good tool for. Teams that kind of push the pace a little bit more. So I think look out for Whimsicott. I think that's going to be a mon that really definitely sees some usage.
And Tommy, I know you talked about Gastrodon and you talked about Mienshao as well. And Conk, I'm happy you brought up Whimsicott because I think what needs to be said about this is you are seeing these Pokemon that serve a small niche, but that small niche is to enable your restricted that much better. And in a restricted format, you can afford to say, hey, this one piece is supporting my one other piece on my team really, really well. Let's bring it. I think that is very, very strong. That is what you see with Gastrodon. That is what you see with Mienshao. That is what you see with those Whimsicotts. Now, Gastrodon's a little bit different. I'll get into that in a second. But Calyrex Shadow, it is so strong, right, that there's only so many weaknesses that it has. And being able to just pair it with Mienshao and having Mienshao beside Calyrex Shadow, just to get rid of the dark types, not be intimidated, not be faked out by Incineroar, remove it from the field with a close combat, click Wide Guard for the Calyrex Shadow mirror, click Fake Out to support your Calyrex Shadow, click Feint to be able to potentially break a Wide Guard if you hit the correct slot, or to be able to just break Protect so they can't protect and reposition in front of your Calyrex Shadow. It is a very strong mon as a Calyrex Shadow partner, and that is the only partner I would recommend Mienshao for, in my opinion. I think it really gets the boost that it needs. You can probably pair it with maybe a Kali Ice and like try to coach, do some coaching, maybe beside like a Zamazenta, do some coaching stuff. But I think it really excels in this format beside Kali Shadow. That to me is where it lands. And
next one.
Of course they did, Tommy. I never had a doubt. I never had a doubt. But Gastrodon, guys, Gastrodon's a weird one in this format. Because Storm Drain is an amazing ability, and it was an amazing ability when Kyogre was king. Kyogre is no longer king. Kyogre is still very, very strong, but Kyogre is no longer going to be the king of the format. And I feel like because of that, Gastrodon sees a lot less usage than it normally would. Like normally by now, 3 weeks into a restricted format, we would have seen Gastrodon, right? But we also really haven't seen all that much Kyogre. I know the big tournament this weekend, the Honolulu Challenge there, I think Kyogre, I think there were 5 of them. 1 got second, the other 4 pretty much completely scrubbed out, if I remember that correctly. I could be slightly wrong, right? So you're not seeing massive usage of massive water type, right? And that's what Gastrodon is really, really good at. When you can basically shut down a very, very common Pokemon, Gastrodon is good. But when it's not that much of a common Pokemon, I can't see it creeping into the meta.
And I don't think Urshifu and Ogerpon Water, like Urshifu Rapid Strike or Ogerpon Water, are seeing enough usage to have it be worth it in the other non-Kyogre matches either.
They're seeing enough usage, but they're not seeing enough usage in a sense where for Gastrodon to come around. Like, they're still seeing usage. Urshifu is still incredibly, incredibly strong. But then you have a Gastrodon on your team. And when I can't justify beating a restricted with my Gastrodon or beating the top mon in the format with my Gastrodon, it really is, oh, I just kind of have a Gastrodon on my team.
Yeah, it's just not doing it. Like it's just not doing nearly enough. Um, Or
It
two
is.
other mods that I think I just
Yep.
kind of saw that I thought would they weren't bad before necessarily, but I just hadn't really seen like top results, and I think they're gonna be a little bit better now, like because of the certain comps they can be on. So one is Archaludon on rain teams with Kyogre.
Yep.
I think it is just like it's a good natural partner to block all the fire, water, grass stuff that you'll see with just the stamina obviously, but being able to just electro shot and just keep electro shotting with a good rain setter next to it, and then also being able to kind of just eat some of that like common stuff you're gonna see. So I think that's gonna be something that sees some usage, and then Iron Jugulus on Miraidon teams I think is actually a really smart counter to Cali Shadow. It can set up Tailwind. It gets that speed boost in the terrain. So I think that's something that's going to actually be really good as well.
Yep. I do want to touch
Uh,
upon your Dialga, no, not Dialga, your Archaludon Kyogre core, real
yeah,
quick, because for years in restricted formats, everybody was always saying Dialga plus Kyogre, there is a niche there, it does stuff, right? And granted, Dialga Kyogre, type synergy between those two is amazing. However,
yeah,
Archaludon can now do what Dialga did for the most part. Obviously, there's some variance there. It's not quite as bulky on the special side at all, right? But like for the most part, in theory, it's doing exactly what you'd want Dialga to do on that core. So now you get Kyogre with basically a non-restricted Dialga or a Dialga at home, and that feels good because now I don't need to waste a restricted. I think Kyogre Archaludon is very strong. I am interested actually in seeing where that goes when we get Kyogre Archaludon and another restricted beside it. Because before, everybody was hyping up Kyogre Dialga. You can no longer put another restricted. But now you get Kyogre, that big steel type, and another restricted. I'd be very interested when that actually hits the board, how that core develops. I mean, right now it's going to be good. You're going to see it around. I just think it takes that even farther jump when we get that second restricted. It's going to be crazy.
That team, is it like Lando, Torn, Archaludon, Ogre?
There's a few variants going around. Yeah, pretty much.
yeah. It's there's some variants, but there's definitely Torn on those comps
Yeah.
and Archaludon and Kyogre, and then kind of some pairings. But that's an interesting point because I'm not totally sure Archaludon would be better in the double restricted. It definitely might. I just think it benefits right now because it's being that damage dealer next to Kyogre, whereas when you have that dual restricted, you usually want to bring your dual restricteds, and so now having then you want some like support for those dual restricteds usually, and so I could see it actually having a little bit more time to shine right now,
I could see
where
it.
it's the damage dealer versus like you want okay, you have Kyogre plus Caliace and like a Tornamungus or something. You know what I'm saying? Like are you like Torn relevant
Yeah,
like
I got
something
you.
to like help. Oh, interesting. I'm excited to see when we finally get or when we get GS Cup thing how things change a lot. All right, we're kind of running out of time here, but want to see if there's any other last mons that you guys want to call out that could be something that whether it's restricted or whether it's a non-restricted that could be good going into indie and Reg G in general.
I have two that I want to talk about. I don't think they're anything crazy. Tommy, do you got anything real quick?
I got a couple things. Got a couple things. Should I bring them up now? I put them in the pod topics earlier, but
Oh,
so
can
like,
Here, so let
can I finish
let
the
Ryan
mons
go
then
first.
first?
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, I'll first the two I'm gonna go real quickly on. Ditto. Ditto loves restricted formats. What's better than having one restricted on your team? Being able to cycle in a Ditto and all of a sudden have two restricteds on your team, right? We've established a lot of these teams can be 5-mon cores, and you have a Pokemon that's meant to fix certain matchups. Ditto can be that Pokemon.
Yeah.
I don't love it. It feels a little weird. I did test it early on. It feels a little weird because of the ability to Terra now. Before, it was really used as that Calyrex Shadow, that Zacian answer. Zacian's gone. It's really not around that much anymore. There's better answers to Zacian. You're not really capitalizing as much as you did there. And Calyrex Shadow, before it was, oh, well, I'm going to run Scarf Ditto. I come on in with Ditto. I take your Calyrex Shadow. I Astro Barrage. If I position better, I win. But if I do that now and then all of a sudden they Terra Fairy, I don't get that same advantage, right? I'm not saying it's useless, but I do think it actually takes a hit because of terrestrialization, but you're still gonna see it. Someone on the right team, on a hyper offense team, is gonna find a way to cycle Diddle on, and it's gonna be terrifying. The other one I want to talk about is Bronzong.
Yes.
Bronzong historically has had incredible success in restricted formats. You go back to 2016, you would skill swap with Groudons, and you go Gravity, you'd get all that kind of stuff. You go out to 2019, you would be countering Xerneas, you would be Trick Room, you'd have a lot there. And then 2022, you'd break Cali Ice because Cali Ice just simply cannot touch you. If they're running the normal Cali Ice set with Glacial Lance and high horsepower, let's just say, which it should be, they can't touch you. You are a Levitate, and you get 1 Iron Defense up. Glacial Lance is resisted, and it's just not going to break you. That is a Pokemon that can easily patch a Calyrex Ice matchup. Now, it's not that simple because there's 5 mons beside the Calyrex Ice, but it is a condition that you can play to. That's all I wanted to say.
And
Those
it's
are my
really
main
good
two
in
that I think you should
Orlando
keep
Eye.
an eye on. Those are 2 I really wanted to talk about.
I used to like it to Wallando Eyes.
That too.
Yeah, even Groudon doesn't love it. Like, I mean, it can go for its, non-stab fire move, and then it sure can Terra and whatever, but then Bronzong can also Terra now, still keeps the levitate, so
Mm-hmm.
definitely can see that. All right, Tommy, I'll give you the floor for a little bit. I know there was a couple things you want to bring up.
Yes. I got to cast my first local, and that was so much fun. I just want to say thank you everyone who listened. Like, that opportunity was really cool. And go support your local scenes. The season's coming to an end. Reg F is ending this month. Go to any Reg F locals if you can. Just support the TOs. Support the game stores running them. And then let's get ready for Reg G. This last month of locals is going to be fun. And then again, this is a time of year where some players unfortunately are realizing, like, hey, I might not make worlds this year. And I just want to remind people there's other ways to have fun playing Pokemon. And one of them is the Pokemon draft leagues where you like draft a Pokemon, not the team leagues where you get drafted as a player. So I actually started competitive Pokemon playing these like Pokemon draft leagues, and I'm in one right now. The first one I ever found, the Champions Pad Draft League, and I absolutely am having like so much fun playing draft leagues again. Like last season I didn't commit time to them because I was like, I want to go to Worlds. I want to go to Worlds. I'm investing time in Worlds. Invested all my Pokemon pie chart time into Worlds. Like none of it was really invested into prepping for draft leagues. And now that I'm like have a little more Pokemon time, not towards VGC, I'm like, wait, this is so much fun again. And I forgot how much fun it was. And if you've never tried it, I can't recommend it enough. I'm like a draft player that plays VGC, not a VGC player that plays draft.
Yeah.
And it's really a lot of fun. Like I can't emphasize enough. I asked you guys before, Rashil, you said you never played one, but Ryan, did you ever play one of the ones where you draft Pokemon?
I am a big fan of multi-battle draft leagues. I'm not the type
What
of
does that mean
person to
exactly?
play a draft league. Pardon?
What's multi-battle mean?
Multi-battle, so it's literally a different game where it's a multi-battle. So you and a teammate draft a team, and then you control one side of the board each. So it's basically it's quite literally doubles, but you control one side, your partner controls another. More often than not, you end up getting in call, so you can coordinating with your partner. It's pretty fun.
I've never
Right.
played one of those.
It's a lot less common than like the standard single person draft leagues, play doubles or singles, whatever you choose to play. But draft leagues are so much fun. And I find it a lot more fun when I can play with someone else. So having a fun draft league partner just to kind of like fool around with and have some fun. Like in the one I'm in right now, we drafted like Grafaiai and Amorous just for fun because you don't get to do that kind of stuff in VGC, and it's nice to go back to just kind of having fun with the game again. And that's definitely something a lot of people I think forget about or get caught up in that push for worlds. But there are so many ways to enjoy Pokemon that I think it's important to like. There's no wrong way to enjoy it. I don't know. I love this game. There's so many different ways you can approach having fun with it, and I think it's universally accepted that it's perfectly legal to enjoy the game in a different way than someone else. Like some scenes, right? Some competitive scenes. It's like if you're not playing this game competitively, what are you playing it for, right? I don't think we have that in Pokemon. I'm sure there's a few odd ones in the community like that, but I really do think that what I love about this game, and one of the main reasons I love about this game, there is so much leeway and so much just we are Pokemon fans. Whether we are playing it as a shiny hunter, whether we are playing it as a competitive, whether we want to play competitive but with casual Pokemon, right? Everybody's got different goals in this game, but at the end of the day, we're all out here having fun playing Pokemon. We're all Pokemon nerds. Like, really. Like, let's be real.
I lost to Terra Fairy Grumpig with Illumies. They did light screen teeter dance turn one,
Yeah.
and I hurt myself in confusion. And then they struggle bug snarl, and I was -2 special attack behind a light screen. I was like, oh my, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like then I switch in my Roaring Moon, and they Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam, and I'm like, oh my god, they cooked me. They cooked
Yeah.
me. And and then I ended up getting them game 3 with Dozo. Because I have Dozo, Spam, and like Roaring Moon, and Sylveon. And it's just so much fun. And Conk, I actually definitely recommend you trying it because it really gets my creative team building juices flowing. Where I'm like, oh, let me calc for. I only need to calc speed for these 11 mons. What's the fastest one with a scarf? Do I need to outspeed? Like, what's the fastest one with this? Like, let me
Yeah.
outspeed that with Taylor.
It is very
Like,
good
oh,
to get like creativity going. It really helps out your creativity. I find it. I enjoy them. Obviously not for everybody, but I do
not for
recommend.
everyone.
I do recommend them if you're
Trying
looking
it.
for something a little bit more laid back than like hard grinding VGC, but you still kind of want to stay a little bit competitive. Draft leagues, if you
This
can
is it.
find one, this is where I'd recommend. It's a
And
very
I could recommend them.
good.
I could recommend some to you. I'm a draft player. I've been in like 7 or 8 different draft leagues now. Um, they're so much fun. I can't recommend them enough. And they're all different skill levels too. I've been in ones for beginners. I've been in ones for high level tournament players that you see on the stream players, you know? So it's like really cool to see the difference between the two. And when you put time and effort in, you can really make a run.
Yeah. And I think overall, just if the season, it's a long season, right? Especially if
It
you're
is.
trying to do the world's grind, and if it didn't end up going your way, or if it even like, I mean, there's still time left, right? So no one's season is
Yep.
over right now. I mean, maybe
No.
if you stop, but just want to first say that no matter what point count you are at, there's still a world where you can get to worlds
Go
from
win a
the
regional.
rest of the term. Exactly. So, but even if it doesn't
Indeed.
end up going your
LA.
way, I think that like it's just a long grind, and I think it's important to remind yourself why you play the game and why we just play Pokemon in general, and just have that time where you're like, okay, wait, let me take a step back and not play just stressed out and just play for fun, and like to make sure that
Yes.
you're just still having fun with the game. And I think that's the biggest part of it, and whatever that means for you, whether if it's casually playing, like I literally almost whipped out my, I think I'm probably gonna whip out my 3DS and
Do it.
boot up some games actually, and I was thinking of running a Nuzlocke for X and Y. So
Yep.
yeah, they're just like, however you enjoy Pokemon, I think that's the biggest thing is taking that time where it's okay, here, let me take some time between now and when I want to start picking up VGC again for the next season. Just take some really, really just enjoy the game, whatever that means for you. All right,
And
well,
trying
I
to
think
think. Well,
oh,
actually, wait. Are you a big Nuzlocke guy?
I like I do one every like couple years like casually, like one
Yeah.
or 2 years like casually. I did a lot during COVID. I did like a few, but now it's just kind of like every once in a while when I'm feeling in the mood for it.
Can I tell a quick Nuzlocke story?
All right, go for it, go for it.
So I walk into my friend's girlfriend's birthday party,
What?
and my friend goes, "Yo, this dude likes Pokemon. You got to talk to him." And he brings the dude over and goes, "Yo, this is Tommy. I was telling you about him. He likes Pokemon." And we started talking. The dude runs a Discord server with like 12 to 15 people in a very small server, I think. And no, I think there's like 20 to 30 now because I like invited some people too. But he runs a Nuzlocke league where every year they do the next generation, and I joined at Emerald, and they do a full rando Nuzlocke. Like it's a random moves, a random encounter Nuzlocke in the game, whatever generation they choose to do, with the random starters chosen by the previous year's winner, and then you use your in-game team to battle in a tournament bracket after. And I
Okay.
had so much fun playing. Um, and it was just my first experience with a Nuzlocke. And I ended up EV training all my mons, and no one else did. So I ended up winning like dominantly, which was a lot of fun too. But again, like those types of ways to play Pokemon, where it's like unexpected and like, oh, I've never done this, let me try it out. And like again, last season I couldn't commit to it, but I got to choose a starter because I won. the previous season. Actually, who did I pick for the starter? How do I forget who I picked for the starter? I don't remember off the top of my head. But like I got to choose the starter. And I think I chose like Mammoth or Piloswine.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And again, those types of things are just like so unexpected and fun. Oh, yeah, no, I can't find it right now. I'm in the Nuzlocke League thing. I don't even know what channel to look in if I wanted to find it. So I got to remember. I got to see who I DM'd about that. But that's my little Nuzlocke story. And again, it came back to just meeting a random person at a birthday party. Like you never know where you're gonna get like into these Pokemon communities.
That's Pokemon.
And have a blast with it.
That's Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
we're,
let's
we're,
Con
over time,
keeps
but-
trying to wrap up this episode, and me and Tommy keep going on these random tangents.
well, you got everyone. You got an extra long episode this week, so hope
We
you
didn't
all-
talk about Palkia. What about Palkia?
Until next time, we will see you all in 2 weeks. But thank you so much for listening,
Yep.
and hope you guys have a great couple of weeks.
Come say hi at Indy. Me and Conk are gonna be in Indy. Come say hi. But with
Yes.
that,
Say hi to me in LA. I'm coming to LA now. Going back to Cali.
but with
Alright,
that,
let's
guys,
move
we are
on.
gonna stop rambling. I think. Thank you all so much. I'll wait for Tommy's signature. Love you, and then I will wrap up the episode.
Love you.